Namaste, people. Welcome to Get Set Green Season 3. I'm your host, Pooja Arvi. In this podcast, where we explore stories of people creating change through everyday action and conscious living. In this episode, under the Everyday Changemakers theme, we dive into the world of wildlife conservation and reconnecting people with nature in an increasingly urban and fast paced world. Joining us is Yashas from Wildaholic, a conservationist and a nature storyteller working to build awareness around wildlife, ecosystems, and responsible interaction with the natural world. Through this conversation, we explore how individual experience with nature can inspire larger conservations and conversations around sustainability.
Thank you.
Welcome, Yashas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure is all us. And could you please introduce to the audience so that they can understand what you do?
I am a herpetologist. Basically, I'm a field researcher. I study on reptiles in general. So, snakes is something that is my expertise. But before this, I started my journey with rescues and rehabilitation of urban wildlife and a little bit research on studies on every wildlife as possible. I worked with leopards, tigers, elephants, and every animals in general, whatever the wildlife species that's available in Karnataka. But snake is something that fascinated me. As a species, and also as the number of myth and misconceptions it was holding in the
Yeah, and
society.
I think we will discuss more about that later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with all of this, I just wanted to work with people, let them know what is right, what is wrong, what they have to believe, what they have to not believe, and what is that, the connection that we have to give them to the backyards that they've already forgotten about. So, with combining all of this, I just started to work with people and kids and connecting them to the ecosystem around them and basically a little bit of science communication because scientific research papers are not being read by common public, so that's where
Believe
I
me,
came
I know
forward.
that. Yeah.
So I just wanted to break all of this and then get into a common man's perspective and then getting science to them, making them understand it more easier compared to what they actually think about.
Thanks for your brief introduction, Ashes. I would wish to, bring the focus on the myths and maybe the fear factor around snakes, right? I do understand that you do have this special fascination or interest when it comes to snakes. But when it comes to people like us, including me, I'm not somebody who is, let's say, like so enthusiastic about interacting with this particular wildlife because I do have certain amount of inhibition, fear, I would say, because for whatever reason I have it in me. So can you help us understand? Because sometime back I was seeing a small video from one of the research centers where they were trying to experiment, the fear factor for small kids, where they gave them, non venomous snakes were inaccessible to very small kids, I think 1 year or so.
Yes,
And the
yes.
babies were not scared because there was no reaction, they were not exposed to it. They were just, softly touching, feeling it, and maybe also like it was just like imbibed into the atmosphere. So that brings me to this question, right? Because you are also a researcher by profession. So if you can help us understand that why do we have this inhibition when it comes to snakes?
So fear is something that is actually built by time. It's not something that you carry as soon as you're born, but these are all certain instincts that basically comes into you day by day. It is all the survival instincts, I would say. It's trust me, it's not just humans. It's majority of the mammals that is feared of these reptiles. You would have also come across videos of tiger stepping back when there's a snake, a lion
Oh, then
stepping back
I'm
when
not
there is a
alone.
snake. Yeah, you're not alone. So any mammal in general is scared. Apart from a few, you can say like you take away mongoose or honey badgers or certain species who's evolved to hunt it. Apart from that, every other creature is doing that. The reason is very simple. The species have been, lived before dinosaurs, and that's what the history says
Mm-hmm.
to us.
Yeah, yeah.
So they've seen multiple species like us. We are very new to them. So it's all the instance that we have to basically stay away from species that is capable of survival. So they've evolved with certain capabilities of them, which is able to take down species for their survival. And it's all us on us. It's a natural instinct to step away from it, stay away from it. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you uh, understand how we work in nature, we as mammals, we usually follow a pathway that has been traveling. You take elephants, you take leopards, you take tigers, they usually choose a pathway that is clear and walking in. And that is what it's a respect that we basically giving, because apart from the pathway, apart from the clear way, the bushes hold the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So from the times back, from the species back, we have been following these rules. But as humans, once we are, moving towards, I think, development, or the way we are evolving right now, we are forgetting our roots, and that's where there is a gap of understanding. But the instinct has always stayed with us. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the reason why we fear, but we don't know what is the fear. Even our ancestors have taught us, to stay away from it, doesn't go close to it, nor interact with it. It's because as a common man, you don't know if it's venomous or non-venomous. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they can bite or not. You don't know
Yeah.
if they are, aggressive or not. So better think all of them are venomous, and you are in a safe place and they are also in a safe place. This is what our ancestor was also taught us, but again, we have not understand it well. So there's a lot of myths and misconceptions which has come over, and this is one species, I think I can proudly say, which has the large number of myth and misconceptions towards it.
Yeah, I think I do agree on this, right? Also, I cannot refuse as well because this is a fact which we have to agree upon, even though it's bitter. But one also interesting part which I would like to know here is like the wide variety of snakes, whether it is venomous or non venomous, as you rightly mentioned, that it can be of various types. So, let's say for a common man like us who wants to understand in detail of how these creatures maybe exist, or what is the better way for us to understand, who wants to know more about this.
I would say, as a common man, better to think every species is venomous. Although it
Hmm.
is not
Okay.
factually, in India, basically, we have close to around 380 or 390 odd species of snakes, and out of which, like 85% of them are non venomous, and only a handful of venomous. But the surprising fact is, all the venomous and the non venomous look very similar. Today, I can actually take you on a class for 1.5 hours, explain each and every scale of the species and say, this is how you identify a venomous and non-venomous. But once it's right in front of your eyes, every species is the same.
I will be shit scared
Yeah.
if I'm
So it's
honest.
better to actually believe every species is venomous, so that the reason why you have to believe this is psychologically you stay away from it. Once you
Hmm.
believe it's non-venomous, you start playing with it. I mean, you take advantage of that particular situation.
Hmm.
Just because I say that this color is non-venomous, and you can, the fear is in you is already gone. Now you take a step forward, you go play with it, or you go handle it, you go close to it, but it might be venomous, might be non-venomous. So only somebody who has worked with the species, only who somebody who's understood that, can actually identify to say, hey, he's venomous or he's non-venomous. Otherwise, I would always say anybody to just think everything is venomous and stay away from it. But if you are really curious, if you are really, passionate to understand, I would say come down to the field, work with them, understand them, and then you would proudly say that, hey, this is venomous and non-venomous. So reptiles have actually evolved to mimic. The mimicry can go in different ways. Some can actually mimic color, some can different mimic objects. You would have seen a lizard that looks similar to a leaf. That mimicry is done to camouflage, hide, and protection. So mimicries have gone in different phase. Whereas what have these snakes done is that they have learned to mimic, the non-venomous want to mimic a venomous, so that they create confusion over the species. and they can actually, get away from the predators. So this mimicry or this way of, adopting to look very alike to a venomous species, and that's the reason why we have to actually think all of them are venomous.
You also mentioned about various colors, right? Because when, at least as a person who is not so knowledgeable in when it comes to, in particular, of snake species, right? But at least even I know that from whatever exposure I have from the internet, you see, I don't know what color, like there is no snake available on this earth, because every species, you can see like every color which I can imagine of is already there, and the kind of scales, the maybe the whole texture of the snake body, everything, it is, though I am scared, but when I see that from the perspective of, let's say, a creature, as you also mentioned, the biomimicking part, right, it has evolved so much and so forth. I am unable to contemplate its beauty and evolution part of how aesthetically it looks. So can you tell us more about like what decides these factors in terms of coloring or its scaling?
So, like, one thing what we can come to a point is it's the evolution and the way of adaptability is what they've actually got into them. The reason they have lost their legs. I don't know if you know, or that snakes had legs before, but they lost it.
Are
That's
you
again,
serious? I didn't know
yeah, yeah.
this.
Humans had tails and we lost it, but we still have a proof of a tailbone. Similarly, snakes had legs before, but they lost it, and the proof of their leg and the last existing bones are still available in species like pythons and boas, I can say.
I mean,
Uh,
that is mind blowing fact, because seriously, I didn't know that any of this is true, because I know like Neanderthal, all the human evolution, that is fine, like tail and tailbone, all those factors were fine. But this is like a mind boggling fact. Even I didn't know
yeah,
that they
snakes
had
were
legs.
technically like a lizards before, and there were
Oh.
multiple species of it. And the reason why
Oh.
they had to lose their leg was because the I think I can't say that this might be a reason, but I can. The way they have come through, the way we have understood them, we can say that the food source were easily available for them underground, and the only
Okay.
way they could enter underground was to lose their legs, because legs was something that would basically not easy for them to go into tiny tunnels. So without
Mm-hmm.
legs, making a flexible backbone and easy to move while losing it, entering the tiny burrows that is available underground, they could take down uh, species like rodents, I can say. So
Oh.
any
Okay.
burrowing species in general, so easily available. And the main thing was outside there was a lot of predators also. So if they have
Mm-hmm.
to get away from predators, either they need to hide in any of the naturally available, a stone burrow, or get into a tiny pieces of rocks and stuff like that. And the burrows done by rodents were one of the easy hide space that they can go in through. So food and survival and shelter, I think all three came into existence when they want to get into burrows. And I think evolution and losing of their legs had a great idea there. So they lost their legs. And when it comes to adaptability, snakes have been in everything. They have lived underground. They are living on trees. They are living on land. They're living inside water, so you can find them in every space. So when they
Mm-hmm.
want to hide and protect themselves, camouflaging is something that reptiles have mastered in things. So the coloration, as you were asking about, actually matters where they stay. So
Mm-hmm.
species which is living on ground are usually not brightly colored. They're usually dull colored. They camouflage in the ground, and ground usually holds either the coloration of browns.
Yeah.
So different variations of browns are something that you can find in the ground level.
Yeah.
As you grow a little bit to the level of trees, in the canopy level, you can see again snakes living in the colors of greens and blues, and you
Yeah.
can see them colors of browns also. We have wine snakes that has evolved to look very similar to wines. They
Hmm.
you see it,
Interesting.
yeah, you see in between, yeah, you see them in the creepers. You won't be able to identify which is a creeper vine and which is a snake. That's how they evolved.
Okay.
And we have tree snakes. We have something called as a bronzeback tree snakes. They've got a coloration of bronze to stay on top of a tree and not to be seen by any predators.
Oh.
Uh, And we have
Great.
cat snakes that is also like a brownish in color, very similar to a branch of a tree. And
Mm-hmm.
we have vipers and pythons, which is something which is majority in the ground levels. And if these guys sit in between a bunch of dried leaf, you won't be able to spot them.
Yeah.
So
And
coloration depends on where they stay and how
stay.
they want to hide.
Okay. So basically, it's biomimicry in terms of for them to, let's say, protect from predators, right?
Yes,
That's
and
how
also
this
one thing what I can say is that snakes are also considered to be as an ambush predator, which means they're not something which is known to chase and hunt like how you see a leopard or a cheetah or a tiger.
cheetah, tiger. Yeah.
Yes, but these guys are known to stay, sit, and hide in a place by not seen by their prey. And if a prey passes by, they are capable of just grabbing them on. So they are
Oh,
not to be seen by predators. Also, they are not supposed to be seen by their prey. Also.
yeah, interesting. And so that brings me to the next question, which is how did your journey into wildlife and conservation begin actually?
So in this case, I could say I'm a little bit privileged class because my dad was into conservation in
Oh,
multiple ways.
that's nice.
Yeah, so he was one of those early people who started urban wildlife rescues and dedicated hospitals for them, and
Mm-hmm.
getting in a team, training those volunteers how to rescue and stuff. And he was guiding people on ethical way of conservation. They did multiple research and studies on understanding wildlife. So I grew up in this phase when these guys were working, and people around me were also on a similar interest. So I didn't had any other chance also. I didn't see any other field very interesting apart from this. I was a little privileged to have knowledge and people around me at that young age. I was 5 years old when I caught my first snake. I was running
Oh.
around my dad and his friends when they were going out for rescues and working on rehabilitation and stuff. So I picked up every wildlife which was in distress in city like Bangalore. My house had a lot of birds, squirrels, they had barbets, mynas, kites, owls, everything which was injured
Oh,
and
now
sick.
I'm jealous.
So this is how my childhood was, and then I used to volunteer everywhere possible. I used to live in a rehabilitation center for a long time, in treating these sick urban wildlife and working and then releasing them back, understanding what is the thing. But again, like at the young age, there was not much of of me learning. It was all me just looking at things, curious about. They used to ask me to do something, I used to do it. And then after I reached to a phase, I think I got in the phase of in my high schools and college phase, that's when could understand on what's happening and what I can do, what we can do and stuff. That's when I could figure out, why are they actually falling sick. B That's what we also do in humans. If we are having any problems in our health or, in our livelihood, we should actually think on why it is happening and bring in a solution. So started working on multiple ways to understand why urban wildlife is getting into a trouble, and started working on the conflict part, or the way these guys actually evolve when they are living in the city. It's one belief that we always think is that once you see any animal which we think is not part of the city, but they live around us, especially the leopards, you think they don't come on a vacation from the wild to come to city and fall sick. No, that doesn't happen like that. They live here, but they're hiding and camouflaging. We don't see them regularly, but they live around us. Certain habits that we follow are actually causing troubles to them. So understanding all of this, then I went to a little bit of research phase. I worked with researchers, I worked with fellow biologists, went around them to the wild spaces when they were doing their research, volunteered with them. And as I grew up, I started picking up certain projects to study about species. But like I am a Brahmin, okay, so the way as a community believes species are a little bit different compared to the other things. So, understanding facts and understanding species right in the field on the other side and coming to house and hearing a lot of myth and misconceptions over them, this is what fascinated me to work on snakes. So that is my career on herpetology began. I started to rescue snakes in the city. In a day, we used to pick up, 10, 15 snakes in our
Oh,
people's
here
house.
in Bangalore, yeah.
Yeah, here in Bangalore, we used to get calls saying, "Hey, there's a snake in my house," and we used to run, pick them up, and find a suitable spot, release them. But when you go to that spot and understand how people actually digest this information of them having snakes around them, and when we tell them that, "Hey, look, you have to live with them, you don't have other option," the whole understanding about the species what fascinated me, and then started to work over it. I also ran a project called Living with Snakes, which we are still running to
Mm-hmm.
basically help people live with it. I always say this. I mean, people can't digest this information, but you have option or don't have option, you still live with it. Just because you're sitting in your house, you believe there is no snake, and and think you should still have it, but you don't see it. They might see you multiple times, but you won't be able to see them because of the adaptability that I told you begin.
Okay.
So every species actually fascinated me. I never, had interest to attend schools and colleges. So
Mm-hmm.
nature became my teacher. So learned a lot from nature, understood how ecosystem works, how species works, and what is something that I could do. So being into rescues, being into rehabilitation, being into research and studies, and then after that coming into a phase of education, and then now I'm actually trying to, bring classrooms outdoors. I'm actually covering 30% of school curriculums using the natural world.
That's great and fantastic way of stepping into this. And personally, firstly, I would like to thank your father who used to do these rescue missions earlier, right? And I also feel grateful for their efforts because I am particularly happy when somebody does something good for environment or nature, right? Because it makes me feel that there are so many ambitious or passionate, loving towards nature people that I feel genuinely happy to listen to their stories. And please convey my best wishes to your father as well and his team, of course.
For sure.
And I do agree that you had a privilege of having people around you and enormous amount of knowledge in terms of what is happening, how to deal with it, and maybe much more supportive than any other setup or household could have. But again, it is your passion, right? Because you stick to it. You cannot stay in the game for a long time just because you had an access something to it early on, which others didn't. What also matters is your dedication in understanding things, and also maybe that genuine passion where you want to convey things not in a typical school setup, right? I like the idea of bringing the school outdoors. Can you spend some time on helping us understand what Wildaholic is doing?
So Wildaholic is actually working on environmental literacy. That's the main agenda. That the reason why I started Wildaholic. This was in 2019 that the whole idea came up to me. So I attended the course on mass communication and journalism. And the reason why I did that was because as a researcher or as somebody who is working in the field of science, the way you communicate to people is always scientific. Every term I talk to you would be a rocket science. So that's the reason why common men usually don't connect to this. So then when I used to take awareness sessions or work with people on education on wildlife, it was not much of a success as what I could see. And the reason I figured that was because the way we convey things, and that's when I wanted to understand how journalism works. So I took this course, and then I understood how journalism works. And as a part of a project, a part of a assignment, I can say, they wanted us to start something called I think it was a subject on social media journalism or new media journalism, something. They wanted us to start a blog or something that come into it, and that's when I got this word called Wildaholic and started. And then I just took it forward after that. It didn't just stayed like an assignment to me. So then we started to just write things from Wildaholics to common men to understand what's happening in the surroundings around us, what's happening in our backyard, what's happening in the environment around, in a very layman's language. And then coming to that, then I started to connect people to ecosystem around. backyards around, getting them outdoors, and everybody goes to a park early in the morning to just go
Yeah.
for a walk, but they usually don't see what's in the park. That's where I basically started to make them notice, hey, look, just 1 second, you keep your eye on this side, you can see a spider around here, and why is it living here? What is the connection that the park and the spider has, and what is the connection that you indirectly giving to this park, and you all belong to the cycle. And then I could also figure that out, that they can connect certain topics that they actually studied in schools.
Okay.
And that's when I wanted to bring that's when my head came into existence, that oh shit, these are all school topics, and then we need to actually go to schools and connect to them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when the next generation can actually come into a great the environmental literacy can actually boost up. So I stepped into schools, and the topics that is covered in science, mostly a little bit of mathematics, a little bit of social studies,
Mm-hmm.
were taught in the form of experiential education. I was also working in a sanctuary which had a lot of rescued and surrendered pet animals, exotic pet animals. So there we used to actually run multiple education sessions where kids used to come in, and we used to help them, touch and feel animals. We could literally show them, this is fur, this is feather, this is skin, this is leg, this is tail. And they could connect every topic of their science there with animals in front of them. We could say, this is mammal, this is reptile, this is amphibian, this is how biology works. And with all of this experience that I had from the past, then Wildaholic actually came into using nature as a tool, or nature as a classroom. So we get kids to park nearby. There's actually, I live in Baswangudi, so I got schools around Baswangudi to come to parks in Baswangudi. Like, we have beautiful ecosystem here, Krishna Rao Park, Beagle Rock Park. We have Lal Bagh a little bit aside. So got them outdoors, and I would say that, hey, this is what pollination means. Hey, this is what, this is how, plants work on producing food, and this is how your science topics are there. And I could basically give them certain experiments to do, certain observations to do, and they could connect each and every topics to them. So that is how I could cover somewhere around 20% of a school curriculum by getting them outdoors. And with all of
And
this,
yeah.
they didn't even actually they didn't just learn the topics of the schools, but I could also observe that their cognitive skills actually improved. The way of them, solving certain problems, the way they observe things, the way they understand things have also started improve. So uh, outdoor learning and experiential learning can actually, form a kid's perspective in a different way, and this is what Wildaholic is trying to do right now.
Okay. And when you say that this cognitive skills are improving, do you have any data, let's say, from the participants who participated in these sessions and you collected some data and verified it? If yes, that would be great.
Yes, yes, yes. I also work with another organization called Ticket Tales. I am a lead naturalist in that.
Okay.
We in Ticket Tales, what we do is, it's an action-based climate education.
Mm-hmm.
So we have worked with multiple schools and school leaders for a past few years, and we have collected data on how kids could understand the topics years back, and then after, getting into these curriculums in their schools right now, the way they're understanding things, and the way they're putting things forward, and the amount of action that they are getting into right now, before and after, all of these datas are actually been available in the website. So I can also forward it to you. And
Yeah, that
multiple
would be great. Yeah.
studies are also happening. We are also trying to uh, publish a few articles after this, especially in the field of climate education and environmental education. And once these articles are published, I think we'll have more clear picture to it.
Yeah, that is much needed, right? Because that will help us understand and connect with using data, let's say, where it will tell us like how this is impacting. Also, on a personal basis, apart from the data part, what I feel is like unless you have an exposure to something, or let's say you have been exposed for a prolonged time or even for an interim period of time, there will be no attachment or whatsoever towards it. When it comes to nature, the more you interact with nature, the more you understand wildlife, the more love towards nature will increase for any person. And if you don't love something, you will not put any effort to save the same, right?
Very
So
true.
in that
Very true.
way, it is very important for us to connect. And my another question would be, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges wildlife and ecosystems are currently facing today?
Uh, One thing what I can say is, again, I mean, we all know, I don't have to say it. The first thing is the rapid growth of human population, the amount of demand that we have, and the
Mm-hmm.
amount of unplanned urbanization that is happening. And in the name of development, the whole importance for ecosystem and environmental sustainability is not being given much chance, or not taken into consideration, I could say. But the whole thing is that humans have actually, I mean, if you're talking about sustainability, if you're talking about coexistence, if you're talking about conservation, these were all things that we were doing earlier. It's not something that is have to be done right now. Our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors, our country, our people were actually very connected to ecosystem earlier. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived this far. Also, it's that very recently, it's been just a few hundred years that we have been coming into this phase of uh, urbanization, or the whole of deforestation and stuff all. Even when it comes to outdoor education and environmental education, our whole schooling system earlier were gurukula, where you were actually stepping outdoors in an natural habitat to go basically study it step. That is how we were. It's now that we have step into a phase where we have adopted certain western cultures, and then we are changed everything right now. And the whole myth and misconceptions in our brain, which is already a preconceived notion in us. And even that's the whole reason why I stepped into working with kids rather than adults, because adults don't delete the information which we already have in us. Even if I tell you today that, hey, this is not how it works, this is not how it is a myth, they're like, no, this is what we were taught, this is how it's supposed to be, this is how it is actually. So that whole preconceived notion in our brain, and the whole wrong perspective that we have over the ecosystem and the species around, we are not able to coexist, we are not able to lead a sustainable life, we are not able to connect with the ecosystem around, and we are slowly decreasing in the amount of knowledge we have on environment. The literacy level in us is rapidly decreasing. So the whole perspective of this, the combination of all of it, is why we are losing things. I mean, the basic that we require is food, water, oxygen to breathe is all available there freely. But because of all of the factors that I spoke about, we are losing everything. And now we are in a phase where, you're spending money to get all of it back.
I mean, like, from an engineer's perspective, if I would like to add, yes, I do agree, because population, when it comes feeding so many mouths, having more than 1.4 billion is no small talk, right? The amount of resources we have is finite. The land available to grow or cultivate is finite. And the number of mouths which we have to feed upon is increasing on everyday basis. So also, when I see from economics point of view, right, we have a majority, let's say more than 11% of poverty line, below poverty line. So when we have such complex, let's say, problems to address, what happens is, like, sometimes we may give less importance to the fact that, how much conservation can be done or how well can we achieve these goals. Because at the end of the day, it boils down whether can we provide at least two meals to any family, right? As a earner of the breadwinner of the family, the main focus for them would be to provide food for their family, after which they will consider thinking about maybe beyond their house. So there are so many intrinsic factors which are involved in this case, so it becomes like highly difficult to draw some conclusions around this, because
Very, very
let's
true.
say,
The
yeah.
when we actually work on the human and wildlife conflict that's happening, because everybody, majority, when the human animal if I get into a word called conflict, is usually the The
I think
negative.
there is just a second. There is some cracking of your voice. Maybe I think the mic was you.
Am I audible
Yeah,
now?
you are. But only thing is maybe the movement is
Okay,
causing
probably
that
because I'm moving.
noise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So when we usually work on human and animal conflicts, so when we actually say conflict, is usually a negative thing that has happened. It's usually not positive, and everybody that is affected is something who is either a breadwinner of the family, or the effect that has happened is something that's gonna it's very important for their life. So when it comes to when an animal enters your field, the whole crop is destroyed. So your whole year of earning is gone.
gone.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you can't basically blame people. You can't also blame animals in that thing.
Hmm.
But our constitution or our society is always the first thing is the human life. So we should, if you go and say to a villagers to say that, hey, you have to coexist, you have to live and stuff, it can't, because it's his life. And if something happens, his whole life, his whole year is gone. He has to struggle for his life for the whole year. He has to wait for the next year yield to basically get money for his survival. And when there is especially actually I work with WHO to reduce the number of snake bites that's happening in this country. It's more
Mm-hmm.
than 2 lakh bites that's happening in this country, and more than 75,000 people are dead every year. And it's more than pandemic, I can say. But everybody that's getting affected there is somebody who's a breadwinner of the family, and everybody is in the below poverty line. And they've actually called it as a poor man's problem. They've just considered it as a neglected disease in India, and they've not given much importance to this. So when it comes to wildlife, when it comes to okay, so when it comes to economic perspective, uh, the whole connection between us and the nature in economics, we usually are taking things from nature for our economics perspective, and we are making money from nature, from the resources that we gain from it and things. But when there is any a negative side that is happening from nature, it's usually a great loss, and the loss is happening to a different class of people, and the gain is happening to a different class of people.
Yeah.
So this gap between the class and the gap between the gain and the loss is where we are actually losing that connection. And people who are actually having a livelihood in nature, people who are having very connected to the nature, are usually having a negative perspective towards it, because we are economic constraint is one thing. If you take away economic, if you take away the problems that they're facing towards their life and the money perspective from the nature, even every villager, every people who is actually living around the nature around them are more knowledgeable than us. Everybody is more knowledgeable than a biologist. Everybody knows how ecosystem works. Everybody know how an animal, they know exactly what season, what animal comes close to them. And but just because we are stuck in this bubble of, uh, making money, and, having side effects with the nature, and having the laws with the nature around us, I think this is where we are actually giving that back, a gap between us and nature. It's basically a fine line. You're also on the either side, and you're also on the other side, but
Yeah, and maybe I can also bring the attention to the point where you mentioned that there will be particular class of people who will be involved in, let's say, decision making, and also in terms of deciding what goes on, whether it is policy level, system level, and then it also comes to the industry or entrepreneur level, right? Because when you have such decision makers at the top, the decisions made at the top will impact the ones at the bottom of the table. And even though it sounds unfair because they have the least amount of role to play, but it is what it is. So it is demographically also, if speaking, the population varies, and maybe there are few countries and few other places where the population is quite less, but still there are few other impacts affecting them, and few geographies also altogether, because any impact happens in Amazon forest will affect all of us,
correct.
because that is like breathing lung for all of earth, right? But like, do we have any authority or whatsoever to control? Of course no. So there is this bigger things beyond us. What we can do, but of course, is that do whatever we can from what best possible, let's say, to our best capacities, what we can use with what we have, and what we can do. If we can focus more on that, that would be better place to be, that will save us some guilt of not doing anything.
One thing what I
And
usually say people is that whatever we have done, whatever we have destroyed, done is done. You can't go back and change it. But whatever we have right now, we'll just let it be as it is.
yeah. And yeah, and through your experiences in the wild, right? What has nature taught you personally? That this is the lesson which I learned from some certain, circumstances, or when you were interacting with wildlife
Oh,
species.
nature, I can actually say this in a very vague way. I mean, nature taught me that it can be as beautiful as possible, as calm as possible, as pleasant as possible, and also as violent as possible. As crazy as possible, as
Unpredictable.
scary as possible, as unpredictable also. Nature has also given everything to us. Nature has also given us a chance to create things, given us a chance to enjoy everything. But if we mess with it also, it has also shown us what is the capacity that nature has. So my curiosity that I had towards nature has actually taught me everything. Every time when I see anything happening around, the curiosity of it, why this is happening, why it is happening around, and everything actually had a reason. The whole I can a little bit, I'll take a little bit time, but this is something that that blew my mind when I understood. uh, in summers, we usually see that the leaf is falling down and the leaf
Mm,
is covered over the grass. And as a common man, what you see, okay, the leaf is gone, and then there's just a amount of trash on the ground, and you just clean it up and go. But the nature is played such a way that once summer comes in, the soil actually hits up the hard level because sun is falling up to it. There's a lot of heat, and it becomes solid day by day, and the amount of water in the soil level is less, so the tree doesn't get much of water. So
mm,
the leaf has a habit to basically a concept called perspiration, where they let out water from it.
yeah.
Yeah. So if there is more leaf, more water is going on. So what is a tree doing? It is shedding down on the leaf, so the water is not going anywhere, and it doesn't have a chance to take up water from the ground. And now, once
Mm-hmm.
the leaf is falling down, it is also covering the whole ground level, and now the sun is also not hitting the ground. So whatever the moist which stays on the ground stays as it is. And then now the beautiful part comes in. After summer goes up, it rains. So when
Mm,
it rains, and if the ground level is not filled up with anything, and it is solid and it is just clear, the water just flows to the valley. Wherever the water flowing system is going around, where the topography is arranged, the water what flows out. But now the leaf is stacked up. So what happens to the water? The water is held right there.
mm.
And it's drip by drip, drip by drip, drop by drop, drop by drop. The leaf is basically giving all the water to the ground level, and now the tree has all the capacity to pick up that water, and then no, it can give all the new leaves that is possible. So if you actually understand nature, if you're curious enough to know what's happening each and every day, it actually blows your mind.
Yeah.
So nature is the best teacher, I can say, that we can ever have. So
Yeah.
every day I'm
And
telling
also,
you, even after so many years of being with nature, every day I feel I'm just a small child in nature, and every day we can learn something in nature.
and that's profound and wise, both, right? Because no matter how much you know, or how much you think or believe that you know, can never be equivalent to the amount of, let's say, the miracles or the logic behind how the actual nature works. I mean, we are just teeny tiny bit in this all of universe in which we are in on particular planet in our solar system, and again in your planet you are in particular country depending on where you take birth from. So we are tiny dust minuscules, so less. And if we actually see it, it is kind of, like philosophical, where it goes into saying, like, though it is evident we know that how insignificant or small contribution we have in all of the universe. But maybe because how chaotic the life happens in your lifetime, you kind of forget that fact, or maybe even if you know, you will not be in a position to accept it, that you have finite time and this is what your contribution altogether is. So yeah, this is how I think I do agree with you on that. Nature, there is nothing beyond nature, of course, and there is no better teacher than nature.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for spending your time with us. We had a great conversation, and especially it helped me understand snakes better, I would say. We are at the end, and we have one small rapid fire round where
Yes.
we will have three questions. You just have to give one word, and I will not bug you for, explain more on that.
Perfect.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Yeah. So, sunrise safari or night trail?
Night ride.
Night trail. Oh, okay. Is it because I know I said that I will not ask a question, but I'm curious again. So, is it because the snakes are active in the nighttime?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that
Majority
the reason?
snakes are active in the night, and the nocturnal species are actually fascinating.
Oh, okay. And one place everyone should experience in nature once.
First thing I can say is your backyard,
Okay. That I can do today.
because only if you
And
do it in your backyard now, that's when you get that thing to go to Amazon tomorrow.
hmm, yeah, hopefully. So, conservation in one word?
It's your everyday um, lifestyle. In everyday, each and everything you do can actually contribute to conservation. You don't have to do a separate work for conservation. Whatever you do in everyday thing, a small change in habit, that's conservation.
That's great. And thank you, Yashas, for sharing your experiences and perspective on wildlife conservation and also reconnecting with nature, right? So, this conversation reminds us that the conservation doesn't always begin with large movements or campaigns. Sometimes it starts just with small curiosity, awareness, and a stronger connection to the nature world around us, right? So, this is Get Set Green. Stay tuned for more conversations with people who are creating change one step at a time. And please share, subscribe, and follow Get Set Green. That's it for today.
Thank you.